and I hope you'll be happy with that.
I am certainly happy with that, and I'm assuming there's plenty of people already on our line, which is a good thing.
Oh yes, thousands already. It's fantastic. Yeah, no, really delighted. And by the way, while I've got the chance, you are plugging lots of things. You know, there are a lot of interesting things around the airfield to go and see, and lots of visiting aircraft, but also in Hangar 2. I had the chance this morning, very early on, to actually get a bit of time myself, and I've got to say, the Blackburn B2 is just a stunning aircraft, beautiful to see. The moth alongside sets it out, but all the other enthusiast societies was there as well, including our own Scampton heritage people. Had a fascinating talk with one of the volunteers up in Guy Gibson's office very early hours this morning, which was just terrific. I really appreciate the time that so many of these volunteers are giving. So I urge everybody actually during the course of the day to make the most of what is available in the whole airfield itself as well. And of course I understand there's some room in the Downbusters Club as well, which I understand you've been plugging. So if you want to go somewhere nice and cosy, the only reason I mention it of course is because my wife is running it.
Yes, thank you, George.
It's a family show.
We will talk to you later.
Okay guys, see you in about 15 minutes. Bye.
George and Ben will be taking over the airwaves in about 15 minutes time and bringing you
display. Then we've got the OB-10B Bronco from the Bronco demo team, the very impressive Boeing 727 of T2 Aviation, operated on behalf of Oil Spill Response, giving its
familiar with that sort of activity anyway, but since the runway is extended, all local residents will of course be aware of the extension and the kink in the A15 as a result of the 6,000 to now nearly 9,000 feet available to us, which is marvellous, giving almost unrestricted use, but of course for many of the aircraft we've got here today, pretty much 3 or 4 times more than they need. Back to the action on the runway right now.
Yes, we should also say that one slight peculiarity of Scampton compared with some venues you may go to for other airfield-based air shows is that there is no parallel taxiway on the far side of the airfield. While some of the aircraft are operating from a pan on the far side, we can just see the aircraft of the Global Stars and the Breitling Wingwalkers. Beautiful sound of the aircraft's 2 Armstrong Siddeley Cheetah engines of 420 horsepower each, powering into the air an aeroplane that was in its day quite revolutionary for the Royal Air Force. It was designed as an offshoot of Avro's Model 652 commercial airliner, and it was intended to meet an Air Ministry specification for a twin-engined coastal reconnaissance land plane. And for its day, although it might not seem so now, it was very advanced, being, as we can see, a monoplane with a retractable undercarriage, because it was the first ever Royal Air Force aircraft to have that configuration. As for the name, well, it was called Anson, after the Admiral of the Fleet, George Anson, the First Lord of the Admiralty during the 7 Years' War of the mid-18th century. And it was indeed on maritime duties that the aircraft first came into service with RAF Coastal Command in March 1936. RAF Bomber Command, that command most associated with Scampton's history, also took on the Anson as an interim measure, and 26 squadrons in both of those commands had Ansons on strength when war broke out in 1939. soon the Anson was obsolete on the RAF's front line as hopefully more capable aircraft arrived. The Lockheed Hudson for Coastal Command and the Armstrong Whitworth Whitley for Bomber Command, albeit the Whitley was a somewhat disappointing machine. But nonetheless, the Anson continued its crucial wartime service as a trainer for pretty much all members of bomber crews. It was used for that purpose both here in the UK and in Canada. In the case of training use in Canada, that was as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. Just under 7,000 examples of the initial Mark I Anson ended up being produced, and there was licensed production in Canada as well. But even after the war, the aircraft carried on being developed, and you see one of the fruits of that here in the form of the post-war civil version, the Avro 19. But the RAF took that on as well. It wasn't until 1968 the final Ansons left RAF charge. Those were on the strength of the Western Communications Squadron station. With the likes of the Lancasters, Halifaxes and Stirlings of Bomber Command, and alongside the other main US Army Air Forces bomber type of the Second World War, the consolidated B-24 Liberator formed part of the highly successful Allied heavy bomber offensive of the latter years of the Second World War. Apron, the PBY-5A Catalina. Yes, and an aircraft type we mentioned during the B-17 display as one of the US Army Air Force. restoration process at the moment.
Historic aircraft yet, although this one may be 42 years old. The Gazelle will remain in military service almost certainly until 2025, and maybe even beyond that. It's still doing sterling work in the surveillance and reconnaissance roles, and of course able to be laden with many interesting devices, this helicopter.
Yes, it is. When I was a recce pilot, my first tour in Germany, then we had a gyro stabilised flight. It was operated in Ireland as it's still done today with an MX-15 camera and a year of display. Now flies citation legend for NetJet.
Oh, very nice.
He's a commercial pilot, yeah, as we all are, having to earn a crust somewhere else. But anyway, here he is. He's just coming up to a high hover. We should then see him bow, and hopefully, if the wind allows, he'll do a 360 and turn and depart the crowd away from us in a moment. There he is, nose down, 90 degrees. Should perform a turn coming around towards the crowd. Hear the aircraft whistling away as he's just putting a little bit of power, accelerating through the turn. And departing crowd centre.
150 miles per hour. So here they come from the right-hand side. I'll let you hear the jet noise. Give them a big wave as they come past, taking off for a display takeoff. Amongst you might have noticed that in the back of Red 1, Red 7 and Red 9's aircraft there are other people hard fighting the G-force as they point back towards each other to fly the Cyclone. Again, the synchro pair will cross directly out to the front in what we call their slingshots. But now you need to look to the right-hand side to find Enid. Get down, says Red 1. The wings of Enid drop down to form a lopsided inverted V shape. Now look to your left. Here comes a low jet. This is Red 9. He's going to fly through the middle of this V now as Enid and Red 9 present the Goose. Off to the right-hand side with a little twinkle roll there was Red 9, Flight Lieutenant Emmett Cox. Coxey is in his third and final year in the team. Also his final UK public display today. He is from New Zealand, but he moves to the UK to join the Royal Air Force and became a Tornado pilot and Tucano instructor. I know Emmett's got some family all the way from the United States to watch his final display, so a big hello to you guys. Now look straight ahead for Red 6, 7 and 8. You've been watching the Royal Air Force aerobatic team, the Red Arrow! Red 1 is just putting his smoke on so the other 7 aircraft can get visual with him as quickly as possible. They're going to gather up as an 8 ship and come in to land very shortly from your right hand side through a big battle break.